Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Restoration Farseer Shaman guide on how to heal in RAID in Season 3 of the War Within. If you're interested in Mythic Plus, make sure to check my guide for that, links in the description below and on the top right of your screen. And although we'll be discussing the same Farseer spec, you'll be surprised how much easier things are in RAID compared to Mythic Plus. So let's get started. As a matter of fact, you'll be casting 2 spells and 2 spells only, mindlessly, endlessly, as much as you can. Those will be our favorite Riptides, and once Riptide is on cooldown, you will be casting Healing Waves. There are a lot of talents that make these 2 spells extremely powerful, so that there's only 2 other spells that you'll be pressing outside of cooldowns for your main rotation. Namely, those would be your Ancestral Swiftness and, of course, the Cloudburst Totem. With that said, you have your main rotation, which I'll show in just a second, but I would suggest to keep watching this video because after that I'm going to explain why those 4 spells are so important, and of course I'll give you a lot of min-maxing tips on how to increase your throughput. Now, the recipe for success: keep your Riptide on cooldown, use your Ancestral Swiftness on cooldown, spam as much Healing Waves as you can in between, and of course utilize your Cloudburst Totem. That's all that there is to this spec. Now that this is out of the window, let's talk about your talents and explain why those 2 spells are as powerful as they are. Well, this is a guide like no other. I'll show you the talent build straight away, and then we're gonna talk about the choices that you'll be making inside of your talent tree. You can of course copy this build from the description of this video, and I'll also note that there's a note that you can change. You can swap your Earthen Wall Totem for the Ancient Protection Totem, which is great for progression and maybe makes it a little bit easier to play, but this is definitely not groundbreaking. The important part are the talents that buff your Riptides. There's a lot of them who increase the healing, increase the duration, increase the halt effect of it. There's a hero talent that increases the charges of Riptide that you have up to 3, but the most important talent is probably Undercurrent. This is a 2-point talent which gives you 1% more effective healing for every Riptide that you have out and rolling on your allies. So, if you have 10 Riptides out, you'll be doing 10% more healing, and that is a lot. So that also brings us to the very first most important tip for this guide. You don't want to be just pressing Riptide, you also want to make sure that once you're casting it on someone who doesn't have one rolling already. This is going to maximize the bonus that you get from the Undercurrent talent, and then later on, once you start casting the Healing Waves, they'll be hitting for 15% more because of the Deluge talent. Yes, this is a passive bonus, and yes, you're taking Healing Rain in your talent tree just to get to this talent node. As you saw earlier, you're never casting Healing Rain in your main rotation, as the healing from it is not really worth it, but at the same time you can get huge value out of the Deluge talent, as you're gonna be having a lot of Riptides rolling on half or even more part of your raid. Not to mention that the more Riptides you have, the more chances you get to proc deeply rooted elements. This gives you Ascendance for 6 seconds, which is a burst of healing, extra haste, and then duplicating the healing that you do to allies near you. Every cast also gives you 2 stacks of Tidal Waves, which reduces the cast time of your next Healing Wave, which is the spell that we're gonna be talking about next. Now, a Healing Wave is as simple as it sounds. It heals your target for a certain amount, and you can reduce the cast time, as we just mentioned, by casting more Riptides. The game changer though is a talent called Whispering Waves. 15% of the healing that you do with the spell is duplicated into your allies that already have a Riptide on them, so one more reason to spread even more Riptides across your raid. If you have enough of them rolling, it's almost going to be you're casting 1 Healing Wave and then you get 2 more for free, which are cleaving all of your friends with Riptides on them. That of course is not all, as we haven't even talked about hero talents yet, but first let me go back to the Deluge talent. You want to be casting your Healing Waves on targets that already have Riptides on them, as this is going to make your Healing Wave heal for more and cleave for more. So if you want to min-max, the exercise that you need to be practicing for is always cast Riptide on a target that doesn't have one on them already, and always cast Healing Wave on a target that already has a Riptide on them. And before we go to the hero talents, let me also mention the Cloudburst Totem. You kinda have to play this talent because the Healing Stream Totem is not worth it, and you can easily get more value out of the Cloudburst Totem simply if you just press it on cooldown and don't worry about it. Now, if you wanna min-max it, then you wanna drop the Cloudburst so it bursts exactly when the rate is low and everybody needs healing. And if you need help with that, check the Discord in the description of this video, as I'll be posting an updated week aura that is going to tell you exactly when to drop the Cloudburst. This week aura is due in the next few days, and I'll probably also make a video about it, so you can subscribe to this channel as well. Now then, let's talk about what Farseer brings to the table. As a Farseer, you can summon ancestors to help you heal, and there's few ways in which you can achieve that. In this build, we'll be using the talent called Undulation, as we're gonna be casting a lot of healing waves, and every third healing wave is not only going to heal for more, but it's also going to summon an ancestor who is going to help us heal for more after that. If you read the tooltip of Whispering Waves, the healing of these ancestors is also going to spread and cleave your targets with riptides on them once you cast the healing waves. And even more so, every time you summon an ancestor, there's a talent that is going to reduce the cooldown of your riptides by 3 seconds. So as you can see, that closes the loop quite nicely. Casting Riptides increases your healing and buffs your healing waves. Casting healing waves reduces the cooldown of your Riptides, so you can cast more Riptides into more healing waves over and over and over again. That will naturally summon a lot of ancestors that are just going to help you and heal for even more. And let's also mention the 4th-tier piece set bonus for Farseer. Ancestral Swiftness every 30 seconds summons an empowered additional ancestor, increases your healing by 25% and further reduces the recharge rate of your Riptides, allowing you to spread even more of them. As you can see, the Farseer complements this build quite nicely and allows you to create this loop, which is very easy to follow, but now also let me give you a few more tips that you can use to min-max your healing. One little min-maxy trick that you can do is after you press your Ancestral Swiftness, if possible, press your Cloudburst Totem after that. At this point, you're probably going to have 3 ancestors rolling already, and pressing the Cloudburst is going to make them cast chain heals, instead of their regular healing surges, which are triggered by the Riptides and the healing waves. Another little tip in the same direction is try to press Ancestral Swiftness after you've spent all of your charges of Riptide. Just because of the fact that you're summoning 2 ancestors, you're gonna get a free charge of Riptide, and then you're going to get the increased recharge rate. So by the time you finish pressing your Cloudburst and your healing wave, which you're going to combine with the Ancestral Swiftness, you can easily be back up to 3 charges of Riptide. And since your main goal is spreading the Riptides and keeping them on cooldown, you don't wanna overcap the charges, which means you don't wanna press Ancestral Swiftness when you have 3 stacks of Riptide. Let's also mention the Earth Shield spell, which is not permanent in this build, so you have to keep recasting it on yourself and possibly on your tank. And while the priority for that is relatively low compared to the Riptides and the healing waves, it's very important to know that having Earth Shield on somebody and healing them increases your healing by further 20%. That means that if you heal somebody who has a Riptide and Earth Shield on them, your healing wave is going to hit for even more and cleave for even more. Long story short, if you are in a boring fight as the footage that I'm showing on the background and you have nothing to do, you can either DPS or you can just spam healing waves on your tank who has Riptide and Earth Shields on them. That is going to make your Whispering Waves cleave for more, you're gonna summon more ancestors, and keep in mind that the overhealing that you do is actually fed into the Cloudburst Totem. So if you're interested into padding, that's one way to do it. When it comes to cooldowns, Spirit Link Totem is probably one of your biggest buttons. It will make everybody inside the circle survive, so save this for a big damaging event where everybody is stacked on each other. Healing Tide Totem is going to heal everybody in your raid, which is quite convenient if there is heavy AoE ticking damage, and also if you're on the move. And another small trick here is you can also use the Spirit Walker's Tidal Totem talent, which is going to make your next 3 healing surges insta-cast after you cast Healing Tide Totem. You generally don't want to be casting Healing Surges because they do not feed and trigger your Whispering Waves talent. However, they do count and trigger Undulation, so if you're on the move and there's no Riptides to be casting, you can actually spam the insta-cast Healing Surges to trigger more Ancestors. Or you can just run Mana Tide instead and help your other struggling healers who actually use mana. Losers. And then you have, of course, Ascendance that we mentioned several times already. It does initial burst of healing and then radiates healing from you, duplicating 80% of all the healing that you do in the next 15 seconds. Now you can run a talent to reduce the cooldown from 3 down to 2 minutes, which is totally fine if you want to do that. Or you can run Preeminence, which gives you 25% more haste after you press your Ascendance, or after it procs from deeply rooted elements. If you ask me which one to use, both are totally fine, it depends on the fight of course. If you use the haste talent, you can pump a lot of healing while Ascendance is active, including the DRE procs, and while the initial burst of the Ascendance does not count for your Cloudburst Totem, all the healing that you do after that actually goes into it. But if you cannot take advantage of the haste, or if there is a fight where there's a damage event happening every 2 minutes, you can also get a lot of benefit out of the other talent as well. When it comes to stats, for a first time in a long time, things have changed a little bit here. Your primary stat remains your primary stat, so obviously you want to prioritize that, but then your main stat becomes haste. As mentioned, one of your primary goals is to spam as many healing waves as possible, and doing that faster is going to bring you all the benefits that we mentioned so far in a quicker rate. The Old King, the Critical Strike, is next on the list as we scale quite nicely with that stat, and then it becomes a bit tricky. I would advise you to stack Versatility as your third stat, and never worry about it ever again, as Mastery could be a very good stat on some fights, but on others it is the worst by a mile, so not having to deal with it is probably the best solution here. That brings us to the end of this guide. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to support the channel and see more content, use the buttons below, you know what to do. I'll see you in the next video. Now get out of here.